You suck, Fox. But that was nice karma he was delivered. Also, damn, did we almost get Jack Eichel? As well, Markey. He is proving to be that's the goaltender that we were looking for, and we just like to collect points. Anyway, you know what I mean, as it's time for another episode of... Hi there, it's Brett Hornby here, and welcome back to my YouTube channel, and welcome back to another episode of my Calgary Flames in 6. This is up to Season 4, episode number 3, as we are going to talk about Games 7 through 12 in the 2021-22 NHL season. And as I mentioned in the opening, there were definitely a lot of storylines that I can touch upon, happen both on and off the ice. And I say, are we still in that spot? Are we still serious contenders? Or has the collecting points inflated things still a little up to this point? So before I get into the games that I'll talk about, if you want to follow along with this Calgary sports fans journey, all the Flames, Hitmen, Roughnecks, and Stampeders, I mostly do talk Calgary sports on my YouTube channel, recapping games and stories, and I'm about to recap some games in this video, so just make sure you like and subscribe. And I also have a second channel in Brett Hornby Shorts, where I post my short form content on that channel. Let's say, for example, with the Calgary Flames quick game recap, so I appreciate a like and subscribe both here and also on my second channel. And all the stuff that I touched upon in the intro, I'd also do put timestamps in the description below. If you also want to jump to any particular games or sections, or even to find out how our farm team is doing in Stockton with the Stockton Heat quick hits. So without further ado, let's bring out my notes and let's talk about how games 7 through 12 went for the Calgary Flames, shall we? So let's go back to Game 7. This happened on Thursday, October 28th, as the Calgary Flames were looking to wrap up their 5-game road trip to go perfect 5-0. As you recall, they were 4-0 on the road trip at the time, as they were taking on the Pittsburgh Penguins. Let's note that there was no Sidney Crosby nor Evgeny Malkin in this game, so that might have been a little break for the Calgary Flames. So this was at the PPG Paints Arena, 5 p.m. puck drop. All times mountain, and I definitely love it when the Calgary Flames are on the road in the Eastern time zone during the week to fit with my schedule. So anyway, first period, Pittsburgh did outplay Calgary. They outshot the Calgary Flames for most of this one in the game in total. However, it was Johnny Gaudreau who scored his first of the season at this point, just before the 7.5-minute mark of the first period. So Calgary took a 1-0 lead, and that's how things stood after the first period. Note, Calgary also killed off a couple penalties past the 12-minute mark of the first period, including being down 5-on-3. So that might have also been a break, the fact that Calgary did not have to deal with Sidney Crosby or Evgeny Malkin. Second period, no scoring to report, so it was still 1-0 for Calgary. But Pittsburgh continued to outshot Calgary, and it was 30-22 for Pittsburgh in shots at that point of the game. Going into the third period, Calgary did make it 2-0 early, as it was Blake Coleman who got his third of the season 64 seconds into the third period. And then past the 10-minute mark, it was Dylan Dubé who got his first goal of the season for Calgary. And a minute and a half later, it was Milan Lucic, who's definitely been having a nice start to the season. At that point, he scored his second of the season. So Calgary now was up 4-0, and this was just before the 12-minute mark of the third period. There was no more scoring to report, so ultimately Calgary takes this one 4-0, and they go a perfect 5-0 on the road trip. And also to note here, Pittsburgh outshot the Calgary Flames 45-35. Who led the way for the Calgary Flames? Well, Johnny Gaudreau had a goal and assist, and Oliver Shillington, who's definitely been actually stepping up his game and has been regularly paired with Chris Tanev on the top pair defenseman. He chipped in with 2 assists, but I'm just delaying the inevitable. It was Jacob Markstrom who definitely stood out in this game. He made 45 saves for the shutout for the Calgary Flames, second of the season at that point. Well, it was Casey DeSmith who made 31 saves for the Pittsburgh Penguins. So that was their game in Pittsburgh to wrap up their 5-game road trip. So Game 8, this happened on Saturday, October 30th, as the Calgary Flames went back home for a 5-game homestand. And interestingly, we played Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh, while the Calgary Flames were hosting the Philadelphia Flyers. This was at the Scotiabank Saddledome, 8 p.m. puck drop, and maybe Calgary also benefited from the fact that the Philadelphia Flyers, this was their 3rd stop in Western Canada, so maybe we were taking advantage of a tired team, but Calgary was also coming home from a 5-game road trip, so how this one go? And to wrap up October, should I say, Calgary had a fast start and showed no signs of slowing down after the road trip. Points in the period was stop and go, and there was no scoring report, with Calgary looking like the better team, so there was no scoring after the first period. Second period, the Calgary Flames really outplayed the Philadelphia Flyers, outshooting them 16-5 in the second period. Eventually, Calgary was rewarded with a goal, as it was Sean Monahan. Yeah, Sean Monahan, I'm going to say, has recently picked up his play the last few weeks. This was his first of the season on the power play. At that point, he was still on the 4th line, and this was just past the 9-minute mark of the second period. So Calgary took a 1-0 lead at that point, and that's how things stood after the second period. 1-0 for the Calgary Flames. Things got a little more physical in the second period, but it peaked in the third period, I should say. First, Calgary made it 2-0, as it was Matthew Tkachuk scored his 3rd of the season on a power play. That was at the 8.5-minute mark of the third period. After that, rough stuff peaked, as at the 11:40-minute mark of the third period, Justin Braun for Philadelphia was roughing it with Matthew Tkachuk and Elias Lindholm for Calgary, who took roughing penalties with even Provenov for Philadelphia. So those are the penalties that were dished out at that point of the third period. Calgary got the extra penalty on the exchanges, though. Calgary kept Philadelphia at bay for most of this one, I should say. Calgary added 2 more goals late. First, it was Michael Backlund, who scored his second of the season in the empty net with over 3.5 minutes to go, as Philadelphia pulled their goalie for the extra attacker. And then Johnny Gaudreau scored his 4th of the season past the 18-minute mark, and Calgary ultimately took this one 4-0, and that was with Carter Hart back in net for the Philadelphia Flyers. So that was second straight shutout for Jacob Markstrom as well, I should say. Calgary outshot Philadelphia 36-20. This was that perfect, Daryl Sutter game that Calgary was known for, especially in the 2004 playoff run, and I'm going to say that game definitely brought that to the tee. So, who led the way for the Calgary Flames? Well, Sean Monahan. He actually had a goal and assist. Rasmus Andersson and Elias Lindholm each chipped in with 2 assists. And then Jacob Markstrom, he only needed to make 20 saves for the shutout in this game after saving 45 in Pittsburgh for his second straight shutout and 3rd of the season at this point. Whilst Carter Hart, he made 32 saves for the Philadelphia Flyers. So that was Game 8 against the Philadelphia Flyers. So Game 9, this happened on Tuesday, November the 2nd, as the Calgary Flames continued their homestand, 2nd of 5, as they were taking on the Nashville Predators. This was a 7 p.m. puck drop at the Scotiabank Saddledome. And also note, before coming into this game, after Jacob Markstrom having 2 straight shutouts, he was the first star of the week. So congratulations to Jacob Markstrom. If he keeps up this play, as he's shown up to this point, you might say he should be definitely on the ballot for the Vezina and holding that said Vezina trophy. Someone that Mika Kripsov did for the Calgary Flames after the 05-06 season, but that's not getting too far ahead of ourselves. So getting to the game at hand, first period Calgary did outplay Nashville for most of this one. But Nashville hung around in this one. First, Brett Ritchie for Calgary and Mark Borowiecki for Nashville fought just past the 7-minute mark prior to the spark. And ultimately it was Brett Ritchie who got injured on this play, and he's been out for the last few games. After that, Nashville did score the first goal past the 10-minute mark as Luke Kunin, who scored his first of the season. So Nashville took a 1-0 lead at that point. However, Calgary did get a power play shortly after when Dante Fabio / Johnny Gaudreau, and ultimately it was Matthew Tkachuk on that power play. Ties it up at 1-1, so just before the total didn't work, so it was 1-1 for Calgary, or 1-1 tie. At that point, however, Nashville got a late goal by Philip Forsberg past the 18.5-minute mark, so Nashville took a 2-1 lead at that point, and that's how things stood. After the first period, it was Nashville up 2-1 despite the Calgary Flames outshooting the Nashville Predators 20-9 in the first period. UC Saros definitely stood on his head in this one and became one of the storylines. Second period, things did slow down a bit. It looked more of a defensive play period. There was no scoring report, so we still had a 2-1 game for Nashville. At that point, going into the third period, Calgary did tie it up at 2-2, as it was Oliver Shillington who scored his first of the season just before the 3.5-minute mark. So Calgary now got back in this one, 2-2, early in the third period. Calgary was still outplaying Nashville, looking for the go-ahead goal, but ultimately, as I like to say, this one needs overtime. In overtime, both sides had a shot on that, but ultimately, the one shot that the Nashville Predators took was all they needed to win this one, as it was Matt Duchene, who scored his third goal of the season at 1:37 of the 3-on-3 overtime 5-minute period to give Nashville a 3-2 win. So ultimately, Calgary was on the wrong end of this one, but it was in overtime, so they still collected a point in this one. Calgary did outshoot Nashville 40-22 in this game, including each team having 1-1. In overtime, no one had multi-point games for the Calgary Flames, but I gotta have to say Matt Duchene definitely led this one with a goal and assist, including the overtime winner, and it was Marcus Granlund who chipped in with 2 assists. Jacob Markstrom, he made 19 saves for Calgary. Well, it was UC Saros who definitely stood on his head, made 38 saves for Nashville, who was definitely the difference. And then after this game, this is when those Jack Eichel to Calgary trade rumors were starting to heat up. And I did make a couple videos talking about that, where the trade rumor that was really crazy that currently Calgary was offering. And then ultimately, of course, the team that he got traded to, so you can see those videos, but the rumors really started heating up at that time, especially after that game. So that was game 9, mostly on the ice, but then a little bit off the ice. So game 10, this happened on Thursday, November the 4th, as the Calgary Flames continued their homestand. This time they were taking on the Dallas Stars, 7 p.m. puck drop at the Scotiabank Stadium. Third game homestand and on an 8-game point streak, as Calgary has had collected points in 8 straight games, with the exception of their first game against the Edmonton Oilers in the season opener. So ultimately, after coming in this game, Calgary was not the winners of the Jack Eichel trade sweepstakes. You can debate on is that a good or bad thing, or what was the actual trade it could have been. I made those videos, but let's move on from that for now. So first period, both sides had a strong start as Dallas was looking to end their 4-game losing streak. So Dallas was definitely a little hungry in this one. And you can also say this is the first time Calgary and Dallas are playing in front of fans since the playoff series in 2020, I should add. Dallas opened up the scoring past the 14-minute mark. On the power play, it was Denis Gurianov. He definitely had a big game for Dallas in Game 6 that eliminated the Calgary Flames. So, of course, he scored. This was the second of the season, so Dallas had a 1-0 lead. And that's how things stood after the first period, with Dallas up 1-0. Second period, the Calgary Flames did press back and dominated the period. All the offense didn't come until late in the second period. First was Milan Lucic, who tied it up at 1-1 for his third of the season. Came at the 15-minute mark of the second period. Then Calgary got on the power play with a holding penalty on Blake Comeau. But on that power play, it was Matthew Tkachuk, who is still a Calgary Flame. You know what I mean if you watch the Jack Eichel videos. who scored his 5th of the season just past the 18.5 minute mark. So now Calgary took a 2-1 lead late in the second period at that point. However, with literally 6 seconds left in the second period, it was Blake Coleman. No, not Blake Coleman, Blake Como. Blake Como actually used to play for the Calgary Flames. Made up for that penalty as he tied it up for his first of the season. So it was Blake Como, not to get confused with Coleman. Say Coleman 10 times fast. So it was Blake Como who tied it up for Dallas to make it 2-2, and it was 2-2 going into the third period. So that's what I mean by all the scoring happened late in the second period. Going into the third period, Dallas scored to take a 3-2 lead. That was Ty Seguin, his 4th of the season, just past the opening minute and a half, so early in the third period. So Dallas got one late to close out the second and got one early to open up the third period. Eventually, Calgary was able to tie it up after dodging some penalties and Dallas pressing back. It was Nikita Zadorov who scored his 1st of the season and his 1st as a Calgary Flame just past the 16-minute mark. So it was fairly late in the third period that Calgary tied it up at 3-3. No more scoring past the point. So guess what? For the second straight game, this one needs overtime. Unfortunately for the second straight game, though, the Calgary Flames were on the wrong end of this one. Still collected a point. It was Jamie Benn who scored for Dallas. This came at the 2:59-minute mark of the overtime period. So ultimately, Dallas took this one 4-3 to ending their losing streak coming in. Calgary did outshoot Dallas just slightly, 33-28. Including both sides only had a shot in overtime, so definitely was a defensive struggle in overtime with a 3-on-3 overtime and played almost 3 minutes, and each team only had a shot each. So ultimately, who led the way for the Calgary Flames was Nikita Zadorov, who had the goal and assist. Dallas was led by Jack Eichel, who had 3 assists, so he definitely was involved in the play, setting up 3 of those 4 goals. Jacob Markstrom, he made 24 saves for the Calgary Flames, well as Anton Khudobin, who made 30 saves for the Dallas Stars. So that was Game 10 against the Dallas Stars. Game 11, this happened on Saturday, November the 6th, as the Calgary Flames were taking on the New York Rangers, still at their home. 4th game out of 5 on their homestand. 8 p.m. puck drop at the Scotiabank Stadium on Hockey Night in Canada. And this part where You Suck Fox comes into play, as it was Adam Fox playing in this one, and he was public enemy number 1. Also interesting the fact that this is the Calgary Flames playing the New York Rangers within a couple weeks, and I think after this game the New York Rangers are going to say, thank God they are done with us, unless we happen to play them in the Stanley Cup Finals. But let's get into the game. As I say, Adam Fox was public enemy number 1. Let's say he ultimately got some ultimate karma in this game. And I actually looked it up. This is actually the second time that Adam Fox played in front of the Sea of Red. If you go back to January 2nd, 2020, which at this stage seemed like it was 18 years ago, Adam Fox actually had 3 assists in that game. But the reason why we were razzing Adam Fox in this game was we drafted him in the 3rd round back in 2016. And he played the Tim Erickson card. Didn't want to play for Calgary. Didn't only want to play for the New York Rangers. However, he made a good trade with the Elias Lindholm and Noah Hannafin. But it doesn't help that he won the Norris Trophy last year. It's not a big deal. But it was definitely fun to boo the heck out of him. So anyway, getting to the game at hand. Calgary Flames once again outplayed the New York Rangers within a couple weeks, and also took advantage of the fact that the New York Rangers once again were coming into Calgary after playing a tough game up in Edmonton the night before, and 4 players in the ice definitely were thinking, damn, Connor McDavid. So anyway, late in the first period, it was when the first goals occurred. Let's say goals. So first on the power play, Calgary got on the board, as was Sean Monahan, who scored his 2nd of the season at the 16-minute mark. So Calgary took a 1-0 lead at that point, very late in the first period. As the period wound down in the final couple minutes, Adam, boo, you suck, Fox, for the New York Rangers came into the Calgary zone and scored the tying goal. Adam Fox, him sucking aside, that was a nice goal, and he was definitely trolling the fans doing, hey. However, That goal that he scored was called back for some ultimate karma because there was an offside challenge that was proven the play was offside. So Calgary still maintained a 1-0 lead, and the Sea of Red definitely had fun on Fox's expense. So I think after that play, that definitely set the tone for the New York Rangers and the Calgary Flames afterwards. As Calgary maintained a 1-0 lead, and that's how things stood after the first period. I just had to put that out there just to keep the fun going. That was missed last season when fans weren't allowed at games. Second period, the Calgary Flames continued their strong play and felt like that called-back goal really impacted the New York Rangers' play. Calgary got rewarded as Brad Richardson, another player that's scoring his first of the season. And a Calgary Flame, this happened just at the 9-minute mark, took advantage of a nice bounce that I saw when I was watching the game, beat Igor Shesterkin, so Calgary took a 2-0 lead. Then just over 2 minutes later, it was at the 11-minute mark, it was Johnny Gaudreau who scored his third of the season, as Matthew Tkachuk was battling with Adam Fox for a net. Johnny Gaudreau picked in the rebound, so Calgary now led 3-0. And that was all the score in the report in the second period, as Calgary led 3-0. However, before we move on to the third period, past the 17.5-minute mark, some rough stuff. Another polarizing player, but not just here in Calgary, but let's say all over the NHL, is it was Ryan Reeves. He took an illegal check to the head on Andrew Mangiapane, which ultimately led to a scrum. And then coming out of that scrum, it was Eric Branson for the Calgary Flames and Jared Tenorti for the New York Rangers, who had a nice dance and fight. It was a fairly lengthy fight that was clean, and eventually the officials let him fight and let him tire himself and then broke it up. And I'm going to say Eric Branson, he definitely has been another pleasant surprise signing. The spec that was questionable and a little critical of the signing, but that was to highlight that leading into the third period. Third period, Calgary kept their strong play and a few big saves, and Jacob Markstrom also proved to be the difference in this one. So past the 6.5-minute mark, it was Johnny Gaudreau who got his second of the game, as he made it 4-0. And then goals came in even more for the Calgary Flames in a 2-minute span. First, it was Milan Lucic who got his fourth of the season just past the 14-minute mark. And then Matthew Tkachuk, may I say he's still a Calgary Flame, got his sixth of the season just before the 15-minute mark. Showed he had some nice hands in a tight spot. Wouldn't quite say he's showing off Connor McDavid the night before, as he had to burn off 4 New York Rangers and zigzagged and scored, but Matthew Tkachuk definitely had some nice hands on that play. So Calgary ultimately took a commanding 6-0 lead, and that was ultimately the final, as Calgary won this one 6-0. So I guess I'll forget the New York Rangers for not wanting to put, the Calgary Flames anymore. Calgary also outshot the New York Rangers 37-22. Calgary was led by Matthew Tkachuk. He had a goal and 3 assists. Johnny Gaudreau chipped in with 2 goals and an assist. Elias Lindholm also chipped in with 2 assists, and then mentioned that Oliver Shillington, he extended his personal point streak to 6 games. So definitely showing that he is really broken out as being a top defenseman and a regular. For the Calgary Flames, and I'm going to say out of the doghouse, that apparently looked like he was in with Daryl Sutter. So when it comes to the goaltending story, well, Jacob Markstrom, he had another shutout. 22 saves for this one, for his 4th of the season, which leads the NHL at this point. While Igor Shesterkin, he made 31 saves to the New York Rangers. So that was definitely an interesting and eventful game against the New York Rangers on Hockey Night in Canada. So Game 12, the last game we'll recap in this episode, was on Tuesday, November the 9th, as the Calgary Flames were wrapping up their 5-game homestand. This time they were taking on the San Jose Sharks, and the San Jose Sharks definitely have been surprising hockey pundits on how well they've been doing, considering that many players are in COVID protocol. This was a 7 p.m. puck drop, final game of 5, and Calgary collected points in 10 straight games, if you were keeping track. As mentioned, many regulars of the San Jose Sharks lineup were out due to COVID. And once I get to my Stockton Heat quick hits, that affected the Stockton Heat with one game because all the players they had to call up. So first period, Calgary did once again outplay their opponent, but not as in convincing fashion, let's say, against the New York Rangers. No scoring to report in the first period, as this game remains scoreless. Second period, San Jose opened up the scoring 47 seconds into the second period. That was Alexander Barabanov who scored his first of the season, and San Jose took a 1-0 lead. However, literally 30 seconds later, Calgary tied up at 1-1, as it was Andrew Mangiapane who got his 8th of the season. So we had 2 goals in the opening 1:17 of the second period, and after that, Calgary continued outplaying San Jose given the strength of the rosters. But there was no scoring to report in the second period, so the game was tied at 1-1. So if you were at the game and you took an extra long break in the concourse, you would have missed the goals if you blinked. And also to note that Calgary outshot San Jose 19-8 in the second period alone. Third period, San Jose actually pressed back and outplayed the Calgary Flames after hanging in there for 2 periods. San Jose took a 2-1 lead, as it was Logan Couture, still a regular in the San Jose Sharks lineup, scored his 5th of the season. After that, San Jose and Calgary kept getting chances, but the game remained 2-1 for San Jose for much of the time. Calgary, looking for the equalizer, pulled the goalie with a couple minutes to go for the extra attacker, but ultimately San Jose took advantage and put this one away, as they got 2 empty netters. First, it was Thomas Hertl, who scored his 6th of the season with 1:03 to go in the third period to make it 3-1. And then Jonathan Dolan, who scored his 6th of the season in the empty netter with 41 seconds to go. So ultimately, San Jose took this one 4-1 with 2 empty net goals to wrap it up. So that ended the point streak for the Calgary Flames at 10. And this was their first loss in regulation at home, even though they were on the wrong end of it and 3 times in overtime. Calgary did outshoot San Jose 38-26, so it still felt like Calgary deserved a slightly better fate despite the result in this game. Who led the way for the San Jose Sharks? Well, the only multi-point game goes to Brent Burns, who had 2 assists. Jacob Markstrom, he made 22 saves for the Calgary Flames. Well, it was Aiden Hill, who definitely made a great difference in the game. He made 37 saves for the San Jose Sharks. So after a dozen games, the Calgary Flames are 7-2-3 after 12 games. So now let's take a look at some stats and standings before we go into the Stockton Heat quick hits and looking ahead to the next 6 games, which will be in the next episode. Well, the top 5 goal scorers for the Calgary Flames right now. Andrew Mangiapane leads with 8. Elias Lindholm still has 7, and he got all that in the first 6 games. Matthew Tkachuk has 6 goals, and then Johnny Gaudreau and Milan Lucic each have 4 goals to round up the top 5. We won that James Neal trade. Big time. Now when it comes to assists, well, Johnny Gaudreau leads the team with assists. He has 10. Elias Lindholm, Rasmus Anderson each have 7. Tied for second, and then tied for 4th is Dylan Dubé and Oliver Shillington. And then when it comes to points, well, right now, Elias Lindholm and Johnny Gaudreau are each tied with 14 each. Matt Tkachuk is third with 7. Andrew Mangiapane has 10, and rounding up top 5 is Dylan Dubé. So that was the quick stats for the Calgary Flames. So let's take a look at the NHL, shall we? Just see who's leading the way. Well, looking at the top 5 when it comes to points, these are big numbers right away. Well, Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid, just up the road from here, each have 23 points, are tied with 23 points. And then Alexander Ovechkin, he ain't slowing down. He has 21 points for 3rd. Kyle Connor for Winnipeg, he is 4th with 17. So the top 4 players in the Ross race are in Canada. And then you got Troy Terry and Evgeny Kuznetsov running out tied for top 5 at 5th with 16. So that is the leading goal scorer or point getters. Leading goal scorers, well, Alexander Ovechkin, he leads with 11 goals, and I think that's 741 of his career, and he's tied with Brett Hall for all time. So I think Alexander Ovechkin, he still has his sights on Wayne Gretzky's record Leon Draisaitl is second with 10 goals. And then Connor McDavid, Kyle Connor, Troy Terry, and Tyler Bertuzzi, Chris Kreider. So Connor McDavid for Edmonton, Kyle Connor for Winnipeg, Troy Terry for Anaheim, Tyler Bertuzzi for Detroit, and Chris Kreider for New York Rangers. All are tied for third with 9 goals. So that is the goal race for the Rocket Richard. And then when it comes to assists, well, Connor McDavid and Ryan Nugent-Hopkins are each tied for 14 to the lead. And then teammate Leon Draisaitl has 13 for third. And then there's a 4-way tie for fourth place with 11. As you got Evgeny Kuznetsov for Washington, and Terry Panarin for New York Rangers, Seth Jones for Chicago, and former Calgary Hitman Ryan Getzlaf with 11. So that's the quick leaders when it comes to the stats, both for the Calgary Flames and the NHL. Actually, let's go back to goaltenders for the, let's listen to these numbers for the Calgary Flames, shall we? Let's just focus on Jacob Markstrom. As I say, he has 4 shutouts in 10 games. He is 5-2-3 for his record, 169 goals against average and a 940 save percentage. That's pretty good. If he keeps that up, I'm going to say he's going to join Mika Kirpasov for being the only Flame goalies to win the Vezina. So let's take a look at team stats before we look at the standings around the league now that we're 12 games in. So for power play percentage, the Edmonton Oilers lead the league at 46.9%. Don't think they're going to sustain that all year, but when you have David Draisaitl and Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, you can have a pretty good power play. Where the Calgary Flames rank, they actually are 11th at 24.4%. So pretty good. Penalty kill percentage, well, the Pittsburgh Penguins lead the league at 92.3%. While the Calgary Flames are actually 8th in the league at 86.1%. So special teams is actually pretty good for the Calgary Flames. Shots against per game, actually surprisingly to see how Kraken lead the league with 26. But the Calgary Flames are actually not too far behind with 28. And that's just what it's looking on the app. And then face-off win percentage, while the Carolina Hurricanes lead that with 56.3%. The Calgary Flames are in the middle of the pack, tied for 14th with the Pittsburgh Penguins at 49.9%. So that is the quick stats for players and teams. So now let's take a look at the standings around the league, shall we? Let's start off in the Eastern Conference in the Atlantic Division when it comes to division play. Let's see if there's any surprises or disappointments so far. So let's start in the Atlantic Division. Well, Florida's leading the way. After 13 games, they got 21 points. Some are saying that Florida was poised to be a contender at this stage. Well, it's nice right now, but ultimately it's going to come down to playoffs for this team, the Toronto Maple Leafs. They are second in the Atlantic. After 14 games, they got 17 points. Third place, it's the Detroit Red Wings. That would have been a pleasant surprise so far. After 14 games, they have 16 points. Then fourth place is the Tampa Bay Lightning. After 12 games, they have 15 points. Fifth place, the Boston Bruins. They've only played 10 games. They have 12 points. And you can probably say it's a surprise to see who's in sixth is the Buffalo Sabres. They have 12 points after 12 games. And maybe now that they got the Eichel thing situation sorted out, that's a load off their mind. And then the 2 Canadian teams, the Ottawa Senators, are in 7th. They have 7 points after 12 games. And some are saying that might be a little bit of a disappointment considering some are thinking Ottawa's going to take the next step. And then Montreal, they had a bad start. And although they're going to get Carey Price back, they're still without Shea Weber. And I thought Montreal will take a step back after going to the finals last year. But after 14 games, they got 7 points. So that's the Atlantic. Metropolitan, well, Carolina leads that. And I'm actually kind of surprised. I still expect Carolina to be, a top team, but I think with all the changes that happened in the offseason, I thought they got a little worse. But after 11 games, they have 20 points in there first in the Metropolitan. Second place, well, it was New York Rangers. After 13 games, they have 17 points. The New York Rangers seem to be looking to take that next step. And then around the top 3 is the Washington Capitals. They got 16 points after 12 games. And then going low, surprisingly, the Columbus Blue Jackets are 4th. After 10 games, they have 14 points. And then the Philadelphia Flyers are Fifth, they have 14 points after 11 games. And then after 11 games, sixth place is the New Jersey Devils with 14 points. You might be surprised that the New York Islanders are seventh. They have 12 points after 10 games. But let's footnote that they have a 13-game road trip that the New York Islanders still need to wrap up as their new arena is being constructed. And we're going to touch upon the new arena when looking ahead when it comes to the Calgary Flames. And then last place, 8th place, is Pittsburgh Penguins. After 11 games, they have 12 points. So it's definitely a tough metropolitan division, but I think Pittsburgh is one of those teams that I'm going to say is bound to take a step back, especially if they've been playing without Vanny Malkin and Sidney Crosby. So now if we go to the Western Conference, let's look at the Central Division. Right now, in first place is actually the Minnesota Wild. They have 18 points after 12 games. Some would say that's a surprise at this stage. Second place says the St. Louis Blues. They have 17 points after 11 games. Top three is the Winnipeg Jets. They have 15 points after 12 games. So two of those three teams are kind of a surprise to be in the top three at this stage. So in fourth place, Nashville has 15 points after 13 games. Then fifth place, Dallas has 10 points after 12 games. Sixth place, yes, Colorado. They have 9 points after 10 games, but they've also had some injuries, but we still expect maybe Colorado to eventually rise up. And then seventh place, I thought Chicago would play a little better with the acquisitions they made, but maybe the distraction with, what happened with the scandal. They, after 14 games, they have 8 points. And then Arizona, you might say they might be exceeding expectations considering Arizona is stripped down. They have 3 points after 13 games. So it's no surprise Arizona's down there. And now looking at the Pacific Division, well, the Edmonton Oilers lead the way. After 11 games, they have 18 points. But the Calgary Flames are second, 17 points after 12 games. And then surprised to see who's in third, Anaheim Ducks. After 14 games, they got 17 points. Surprised to see San Jose in fourth. They got 15 points after 12 games. Would say I'm surprised to see Los Angeles Kings in fifth place. They have 13. After 13 games, they got 15 points. Vegas, they are sixth. Although they've been without Pacioretty and Stone, and Eichel still going to be recovering from his surgery. They're in sixth place. They have 14 points, 13 games. You might say be a little disappointment if you're a Canuck fan. They're in seventh place. They have 12 points after 13 games. And then the Seattle Kraken. I think they're going to look like an expansion team in traditional form. In 13 games, they have 9 points. So that is the quick standing story. So the Flames are still looking good at this point. Obviously, there's still a few surprises and disappointments, but we're only a dozen games in. So that is the stats and standings part of the video. So now let's take a look at the Stockton Heat quick hit. So how things are going with the farm team in Stockton. So let's take a look at the Stockton Heat as they've got a couple games in with this recap. So game 5 of their season, this happened on Saturday, October the 30th. As the Stockton Heat, they were taking on the Colorado Eagles. This is the Colorado Avalanche affiliate. This was at the Stockton Arena. It was a 7 p.m. puck drop. They beat Colorado 6-3. Adam Ruzicka led the way with the hat trick with 3 goals. Glenn Godwin, Jacob Markstrom, and Nick DeSimone each had 2 assists. And actually Adam Werner, who was in net for Stockton, made 28 saves. So game 6, it was scheduled. Scheduled being the key word, to be on Halloween, Sunday, October 31st, as the Stockton Heat were going to host the San Jose Barracuda. But if you remember going back to the San Jose game for the Calgary Flames, that made the regulars were in COVID protocol, that a lot of players got called up from the San Jose Barracuda. Well, that game got postponed for that reason. So that game did not happen. So game 7, this happened on Wednesday, November 3rd, as this time the Stockton Heat were on the road to take on the San Jose Barracuda in San Jose at the SAP Center, 8 p.m. puck drop, and that game did happen. And the Stockton Heat won that one, 4-1. Adam Ruzicka had 2 goals and an assist. Martin Pospisil had a goal and assist. Andy Wolneski had 2 assists, and Dustin Wolf had 23 saves for Stockton, so we won that game. And then on game 8, this happened on Friday, November the 5th, as the Stockton Heat were back at home. They were hosting the Abbotsford Canucks, and Abbotsford is the affiliate of the Vancouver Canucks. So this was an 8 p.m. puck drop at the Stockton Arena. Stockton won this game 3-2 over Abbotsford. As was Brian Fraser, Glenn Godwin, and Adam Rajicka. All each had the goals for this one. Dustin Wolf made 28 saves for that one. And then Game 9 on Saturday, November 6th, as the Abbotsford Canucks and the Stockton Heat played each other again at the Stockton Arena, 7 p.m. puck drop. Once again, Stockton won another game by 1, but this was a 2-1 game. It was Matthew Phillips and Ita Taloa each had a goal for Stockton. And it was Adam Werner who was in net for Stockton. This one made 25 saves. So when it comes to the Stockton Heat, they're actually looking pretty good in the American Hockey League right now, as they are 7-0-1-0. So they have 7 regulation wins, no losses in regulation. 1 overtime loss, and that was the season opener. And no shield losses, so that gives them 15 points. And they are second in the Pacific. As of this recording, when I made my notes, the Ontario Reign, who is the Los Angeles Kings affiliate, and there is actually a city named Ontario in California, they're first in the Pacific Division. So when it comes to the top 3 for the Stockton Heat at this stage of the season, well, Adam Rajicka leads the team in scoring after 7 games, with 7 goals, 4 assists for 11 points. And then Jacob Pelche, after 7 games, he has 2 goals, 6 assists for 8 points. And then Glenn Godwin, who started the season here with Calgary, eventually got called down. After 5 games, he has a goal and 6 assists for 7 points. Then when it comes to the goaltending story, we definitely have great goaltending down in Stockton, led by Dustin Wolf after 5 games. He is 4-1 with a 159. Goals against average and 949 save assists. Slightly better than Jacob Markstrom's. But this is at the American Hockey League level. And then Adam Werner, who he did sign for depth in competition with Dan Vladar at camp. Well, he's 2-0 in 2 games with a 251 goals against average and 906 save percentage. So things are looking good in Flameland, in Flames and Heat country. So now let's take a look ahead to the next 6 games for the Calgary Flames and the next bunch of games for the Stockton Heat, which will be the next episode for episode 4. And now there's going to be a lot of white on the schedule, meaning that the Calgary Flames will be starting a 7-game road trip going out east. So at least they'll have some midweek games in the Eastern time zone. So game 13, this will be on Thursday, November 11th, as the Calgary Flames will be taking on the Montreal Canadiens in Montreal. That'll be a 5 p.m. puck drop at the Bell Center. And in game 14, this will be on Friday, November 12th, as the Calgary Flames will be hosting the Toronto Maple Leafs. That'll be a 5 p.m. puck drop at the Scotiabank Arena. All times mountain, by the way, as I throw out there. And in game 15, on Sunday, November the 14th, the Calgary Flames take on the Ottawa Senators in Ottawa. The Battle of the Kachukks. This will be at the Canadian Tire Centre, 3 p.m. puck drop. And then the Calgary Flames will spend some time south of the border. So game 16, this will be on Tuesday, November the 16th, as the Calgary Flames will finish up their time with the Philadelphia Flyers, as they'll be taking on the Philadelphia Flyers. 5 p.m. puck drop at the Wells Fargo Center. Then game 17, this will be on Thursday, November the 18th, as the Calgary Flames will be going to Buffalo to take on the Buffalo Sabres at the KeyBank Arena, 5 p.m. puck drop. And then to wrap up what will be the next episode, game 18, this will be on Saturday, November the 20th. The Calgary Flames will be taking on the New York Islanders in New York in their new UBS Arena, 5 p.m. puck drop. So the Calgary Flames will be one of the first teams that will get to check out the new arena for the New York Islanders. So that is going to be the next 6 games. So there's going to be a lot of white on the schedule, but Calgary's 5-1 on the road at this point of the season. So we'll see if that continues the trend. And then for the Stockton Heat, game 10, this will be on Wednesday, November the 10th, as the Stockton Heat will be on the road to take on the Bakersfield Condors, the Edmonton Oilers affiliate. This will be at the Canix Arena, 7:30 p.m. puck drop. In game 11, this will be on Friday, November the 12th, as the Stockton Heat will be back at home. They'll be hosting the Henderson Silver Knights, who are the Vegas Golden Knights affiliate. That'll be an 8 p.m. puck drop at the Stockton Arena. And then game 12, this will be on Saturday, November 13th, as the Stockton Heat will be taking on the Henderson Silver Knights again. That'll be a 7 p.m. puck drop at the Stockton Arena. So yeah, that was quite an episode for the Calgary Flames of 6. We're still looking good. Things are looking encouraging. However, there's still some things to work on, I'm going to say, with the Calgary Flames. In terms of trying to get a little more balanced scoring, I'm going to say more scoring in the bottom 6, as I shall say. I mean, we can't always sustain on hoping Elias Leno, Matt Tkachuk, Andrew Mangiapane keep carrying the load, but it's nice to see Milan Lucic chipping in with some goals, and Oliver Shillington's definitely stepped it up, and Erica Branson definitely has, proved all the naysayers wrong with the signing and Jacob Markstrom. We finally found that stud number one goalie since Mika Karpasov. And that was the question I asked when we signed him back last year in that video. So you can check that video out. So, as I'd like to close out, if you want to follow along with this Calgary sports fan's journey, home to Flames hitting Roughnecks Stampeders, I mostly do talk Calgary sports on my YouTube channel, I recap the games and stories, but I also do a variety of non-sports content like personal vlogs, attempt to comedy, and I also do share my experience on the road or at a sport event. So if that all sounds like it'd be interesting to watch, to follow along this Calgary sports fan's journey, you know what you do, just make sure you like, subscribe. I also have my other social links down in the description below. And I have also done some vlogging on the go, I forgot to add that. And then of course, check out my second channel in Brett Hornby Shorts, where I post my short form content. Let's say, for example, after these Flames games, if it's on a weeknight, at home, it'll be a delay, but I do a quick, post game score and who stood out, and then I might figure out some other things I'll post on there as well. So I appreciate like, subscribe on my main channel here and my second channel in Brett Hornby Shorts. So we're gonna give one more last "You suck, Fox," and that was ultimate karma that you got there on Saturday night. Nice goal, but it was offside. And you still suck, despite making $9.5 million a year winning Norris. But when we draft you and you don't want to play for us, you got to suffer the consequences, right? That's right. So anyways, I want to say, go Flames, go. Thanks for watching, and hopefully this 7-game road trip coming up will still continue to bring good things here in Flames Nation and Heat Nation when it comes to the Stockton Heat as well. So I'll see you in the next video.